Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump.
How did America get to the point where such a person could be elected?
President Joe Biden and I, very proud to report this.
The dancers say they were subjected to a hostile work environment that included weight shaming.
The new Trump thing is at the front of the news and probably should be because it's important. We will discuss. Also, Kamala Harris bragging about something that I would view as racist. Apparently, Lizzo is a body shamer. And if we have time, Fauci's biggest lie yet uncovered. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. On today, it is Wednesday, August 2nd, year of our Lord 2023. Hope you're having a better day than the former president who just got indicted for the third time. And again, I don't know how seriously to take this sort of stuff because if you go through, I didn't read the 45-page indictment as Jack Smith, the special counsel / prosecutor said to do. But I did get a pretty good gist of it. And it doesn't seem like there's a lot there. I would like to play the clip from Jack Smith, the special counsel actually announcing the charges in the indictment. I want to play that pretty much in full. I cut out just a small section just for time. It's a little bit long, but I would like to play it and watch it together and then discuss on the other side. I think a lot of us were expecting a lot more. Maybe that would have been naive. Maybe to expect more would have been naive. But you can hear it kind of in him and what he's saying. This is going to be a stretch. Commentary to follow, but this is Jack Smith announcing the charges against the former president. Check it out.
Good evening. Today, an indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. The indictment was issued by a grand jury of citizens here in the District of Columbia, and it sets forth the crimes charged in detail. I encourage everyone to read it in full. The attack on our nation's capital on January 6, 2021, was an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy. As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election. Since the attack on our Capitol, the Department of Justice has remained committed to ensuring accountability for those criminally responsible for what happened that day. This case is brought consistent with that commitment, and our investigation of other individuals continues. In this case, my office will seek a speedy trial so that our evidence can be tested in court and judged by a jury of citizens. In the meantime, I must emphasize that the indictment is only an allegation and that the defendant must be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. I would like to thank the members of the Federal Bureau of Investigation who are working on this investigation with my office, as well as the many career prosecutors and law enforcement agents from around the country who have worked on previous January 6th investigations. These women and men are public servants of the very highest order, and it is a privilege to work alongside them. Thank you.
Why didn't you charge any of the other co-conspirators at this event?
And that was it. He also thanked he had a piece in there that was, I don't know, 30, 45 seconds about the people that defended the Capitol on that day, putting their lives on the line. Kind of insignificant when it comes to the, not their duty insignificant, but that related to the story, somewhat insignificant. Fascinating. It's just fascinating. Look, if there is something that could definitively say, and this is what I think a lot of people thought, if Jack Smith and the special counsel could come up with something that said Donald Trump himself wanted there to be violence at the Capitol and encouraged violence at the Capitol through private communications, or they found a text message that said, "I can't wait until they attack the Capitol," it's just a stretch. And the reason I say that is because for the last 2.5 years, the same thing has been being said. It's incitement of violence. It's this and that and the other thing. That's just such a stretch because how politicians talk. We played a couple weeks ago, Maxine Waters saying, you have to push back on them. Literally saying physically, if they're in your space, you have to get in their face. Actually encouraging political or physical violence in the name of politics. You have Chuck Schumer saying we have to fight. You have Nancy. That's just common verbiage. So I think, and if I were like a super just can't stand Donald Trump, I would be disappointed at this because it doesn't seem like there's any sort of more evidence that Jack Smith probably has. The question I asked yesterday was, okay, these charges would have to mean, right, that Jack Smith would have some sort of evidence that the January 6th committee didn't have. And if he has something that the J6 committee didn't have, why didn't the J6 committee have it, or why couldn't they find it? And I just don't think that's likely or probable. Jack Smith talked constantly about the lying. And look, I'm not really trying to defend the way that Donald Trump handled January 6th. I think it was all happening very fast. And I didn't like the way that he handled it in varying capacities. But that's not to say that he organized it and played a bigger role other than a politician saying what politicians say. But Smith there talks at the beginning about these acts of violence were carried out on the backs of lies. Almost hilarious. Now, I'm not necessarily defending the positions taken by Trump and the administration while he was in the White House trying to figure out how to secure an election win. But let's just lay this out in context. If the lying is the biggest thing, okay, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but do you think an individual, now they have to prove here what Trump thought and have to prove that he knew that he was lying about something. And so what I'm saying here is, do you think that it's possible that he wasn't lying about things, but was really, really butthurt and pissed off about the previous 4 years? Do you think that might be a possibility? Speaking of lying, the entirety of the Russian collusion thing, all a lie. Throughout the entirety of the COVID pandemic, we were finding out, and maybe we'll get to this episode, Fauci was lying to everybody, and people were chastising Trump for it. The entire election, Hunter Biden's laptop, the FBI and the letter of certification saying this has all the earmarks of Russian disinformation, all of that was a lie. So to sit here and say that Donald Trump was intentionally lying, first of all, I don't know that, right? I'm not saying I know either way. He was absolutely lying or he wasn't absolutely lying. What I'm saying is that all of the media and all of your lefty prosecutors, like this guy, Jack Smith, probably, well, actually, not probably, his wife, directed Michelle Obama's Becoming documentary? Whatever. All of these people who saw the election as definitive think that Donald Trump had to be lying about it. And what I am saying is, I can understand the guy's frustration, and I can understand words being said in that frustration. In other words, meaning there is a pretty decent case to be made, and by decent, I mean pretty damn concrete, that Donald Trump could have said all of the things that he said about the election and what he tried to do in order to figure out whether or not votes were counted properly and this and that and the other thing, and been totally serious about it. Which, if that's the case, then all of this is a moot point. All of this is completely and entirely irrelevant. Because what Jack Smith is trying to prove here is that Donald Trump effectively knowingly lied. And that led to this and that. It is a wild stretch. And again, I was surprised because it doesn't seem to be anything more than what the former president is already being accused of. I'm also not the only person that is thinking this sort of stuff. Just FYI, I figured I'd grab some tweets from people smarter than me. A guy named Eric Erickson, which I hesitate to read because he's a man who could not be trusted. I'm not sure who he is, but he has a first name that is a derivative of his last name and therefore cannot be trusted. Says this: the downside for Smith, he has to prove Donald Trump's state of mind, which is what I've been talking about. Which is just impossible. Now, the downside for Trump, he also said, is the jury is in Washington, D.C., which is, that's also a problem. And if you think that this is going to just go over smoothly, regardless of which way it falls, it is going to be be prepared for some chaos. Ben Shapiro tweeted this: Jack Smith's charges are a wild stretch. They involve purposeful misleading of certain statutes and imputing intent without proper evidence. There is virtually no way to prove them beyond a reasonable doubt, but he's betting on a D.C. jury, which is that's an interesting bet. The bottom line here is that, not to be repetitive, but this doesn't seem like anything that we didn't already know. And if it's nothing that we didn't already know, then is it significant at all? I don't know. It is a very, very, very difficult thing to prove. Oh, by the way, keep this in mind. Just throwing this out there, I feel like it should be mentioned. January 6th was bad. Everybody knows that. Nobody's denying that January 6th was a bad thing. To what extent the federal government was involved, to what extent all of that aside, January 6th, bad thing. At the time, in the heat of the moment, Nancy Pelosi, the then Speaker of the House, easily, and I think everybody agrees on this, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, easily could have introduced a broad strokes impeachment of Donald Trump. If she had impeached Donald Trump for dereliction of duty and just kind of like this broad charge, there is enough votes, there would have been enough votes, again, in the heat of the moment, not necessarily now, but in the heat of the moment, there would have been enough votes in the Senate to convict and remove him from office and bar him from running for president again. Nancy did not do that. Instead, Nancy impeached the former president for inciting an insurrection, which is hyper-specific, and just like what Jack Smith is charging with him now, you're like, yeah, but did he? So instead of a broad strokes impeachment in which the Senate probably, even Republicans, would have convicted, Nancy Pelosi decided, well, we want to make sure that we have Trump to fight against in the future. That helps our fundraising, that helps our causes, that helps us in the election. Voting anti-Trump is the only time in American elections where somebody has lost because people voted against them. Usually, in most cases, well, in all cases except for this, people vote for somebody, not against somebody, except for in this particular instance. And so Nancy Pelosi recognized that and said, I would rather have the wedge that is Donald Trump than actually eliminate what we claim, Democrats and Nancy, to be the biggest threat to American democracy. If they claim it was the biggest threat, if they claim that Donald Trump as a man was the biggest threat to democracy, then why did they choose not to remove him when they could have? Again, probably. But that's just a thing to keep in mind when you're looking at all of this. It's all politics. It's all incredibly cynical, and you can't be cynical enough about politicians, especially their motives when it comes to this sort of stuff. This is not good for the country as a whole, but I don't know. I don't know what you do with that information. Now, I want to play this clip just because I thought it was funny. This is more Rachel Maddow than I think anybody probably would have wanted on this show. But I did think it was fascinating regarding the Trump indictment. Now, in your head, picture with me, if you will. Now, Rachel Maddow things. That is here nor there. But as we watch this clip, again, which is a longer clip of Rachel Maddow than I think anybody wants, I want you to do a fun thing with me. In your head, pretend that this was 2 years in the future, and pretend that she was talking about Joe Biden. Every single thing she says in the context of the future, only because she says former president, so it would have to be as Joe Biden is the former president, everything she says makes sense reversed. If you take Donald Trump, move him out of the picture, and put Joe Biden there, in the context of what Rachel Maddow is saying, it all still makes sense. And with that, watch this, hopefully play this little game in your head with me.
He is, of course, innocent until proven guilty, and he will and should mount a robust defense against these charges, and he should be acquitted if he didn't do what he is accused of. But if the allegations made by the Justice Department in this indictment are proven, if the former president did what he is accused of, history is going to ask a different question of this time than what we might have otherwise been expecting. If the allegations in this indictment are proven beyond a reasonable doubt and a jury convicts him of these crimes, history is not going to ask, wow, how did America get to the point where they indicted a former president? History instead is going to ask, how did America get to the point where such a person could be elected to the presidency of the United States, where actions such as these could be carried out from the Oval Office, directed by a person who was elected president by the American people, along with his advisors?
Isn't that funny? I don't know. I just thought that was hilarious. You could literally replace Joe Biden there. How did the American people ever elect a senile old man that is corrupt as hell? And how did we put up with and tolerate the bidding of an individual who would, I don't know, go on to make millions of dollars from his seat in the vice president, allegedly, and then go on to be the president? I just thought that was hilarious. I want to get to some comments here because I don't know, I've been reading through some of them while we've played our longer videos, and I think these are interesting. This I thought is fascinating. Anna Curry says, Biden 2024 will win again. Trump is done. Yeah, I don't think that's the case. And here's why, because I think there are more people like Jan, who said, I became stronger and stronger Trump supporter. Yeah, that's what I think this is doing. Anytime Trump gets indicted, which is, again, a crazy thing to say, by the way, anytime he gets indicted, his poll numbers go up. I think DeSantis is like below 20 points now in the national polls. Donald Trump is like walloping the entire field. And also, interestingly enough, thing to point out, Donald Trump currently in a just polling nationwide and even in states, is doing better than he was at this same time in the last election against Joe Biden. And even then, doing better than he was at this time in the 2016 election that he won. So, really kind of an interesting dynamic here of people going. DeSantis went on Brett Baer's show the other day and said Donald Trump can't win the general election. Well, I don't know. Just from a polling perspective, he is doing better now than he was in an election that he won in 2016. So, I don't know. Big kind of interesting thing. During the lying section that Jack Smith was talking about, Pat commented, "What about Nancy Pelosi? This is on Joe Biden too." Yeah, there's all of that. Let's see. Jeff points out, yeah, Columbia is a Democrat town, but heavily. I think like 85% registered Democrats in Washington, D.C. So the jury selection there is probably going to be the most important thing, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, all of that. Appreciate you commenting, all of you, and giving your input. Yeah, this just what a wild thing. And holy cow, we are already 20 minutes in. Well, all right. So let me get to this really well. Let's get to this first. We're probably not going to make it to Fauci today, but I want to get to this because Lizzo is in the crosshairs of a legal battle. Anyone remember Lizzo? Wow. Sorry. I realize after starting to talk about that was a wild transition. We went from the impeachment, the federal impeachment of the current president's Justice Department against the former guy who is seeking to be the new guy. That is a crazy Banana Republic type story. And we talked about it at length, and now we are transitioning to Lizzo, who is being sued for body shaming. I get it. That was a pretty rough transition. But I do think this is also interesting, and we do have a Kamala Harris clip to play after that. But Lizzo is being hit with a lawsuit, being sued by several of her dancers for body shaming them, which, how does that happen? How does Lizzo body shame people? And also putting them in some pretty awful situations that are not funny. But I'm going to play this clip from, I think, some local news station covering this, and then we'll talk about that. And then we'll get to Kamala Harris's racist nonsense in a little bit. Watch this.
Ariana Davis and Crystal Williams were both on Lizzo's Amazon Prime show.
Watch out for the big girls.
The pair also went on tour with a Grammy Award-winning artist whose real name is Melissa Jefferson. Davis says she was pressured to attend sex shows in Europe, even though it was against her religious beliefs.
To be honest, if this was a corporate office and she was doing exactly the same thing that she was doing on tour, immediately that would be so many HR violations.
On Tuesday, the dancers and their lawyer filed a lawsuit against Lizzo, the star's production company, and Shirlene Quigley. The dancers say they were subjected to a hostile work environment that included weight shaming and unequal pay.
So what it sounds like, and this is all allegedly, by the way, just so I'm not being, sounds like Lizzo might be a bad person. This would come as a shock to absolutely no one, which is unfortunate. I like Lizzo's music. Just say what you want about her as a person. She makes some catchy music. My wife and I actually went to go see her in concert, and the concert was great. Aside from the small section of just crazy woke nonsense and glorifying people being absurdly unhealthy with their dietary lifestyle. Aside from that, that was a great show. So all the best to Lizzo. I hope she turns things around, comes out of this brighter on the other side and realizes, hey, maybe I shouldn't be such a mean and bad person. But also, best of luck to those ladies who are seeking damages from somebody who, probably could have told you is not the best person. Geez, I feel like a lot of you, especially in the comment section, really, really want to talk about Trump more. But we're not going to do it. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris. In my opinion, saying things that are racist. Stop lefty racism. I should make that t-shirt. Would anybody buy that? Would anybody walk around with a t-shirt that just says stop lefty racism or stop liberal racism? There's a Thomas Sowell quote, and I'm gonna butcher it, but if I'm characterizing it, it says something along the lines of racism in the country to a large extent is dead, except for the lefties who continue to perpetrate it in order to gain votes and money, which is that's relatively true. Sorry I butchered the quote, but yeah, that's kind of it. Now, the racism on the lefty side of the aisle, the liberal side of the aisle, is interesting because it's disguised as virtue. If you disguise something bad as something good, unfortunately, the people that are barely paying attention see it as a good thing. But it also has some pretty bad ramifications. I want you to watch this clip from Kamala, in which she is bragging about something that I view as racist. Watch this.
Coming into office, President Joe Biden and I, very proud to report this, have appointed more Black women to be federal judges than any administration in history, including the first Black woman ever to sit on the highest court in our land, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Is that not absurdly racist? I just don't. Who cares? And if you do care, at what point do you then start appointing people to Supreme Court seats solely based, well, Joe Biden did this, which I thought was extraordinarily racist at the time, solely based on people who haven't been there, minority groups who haven't had a seat. What about, and I'm just throwing this out there, what about the first male Samoan Supreme Court justice? How about that? I have zero qualifications and zero interest in the job, but since the only thing that matters is filling demographic checkboxes, I'm gonna go ahead and throw my name in the hat. I guess I don't know. I don't know how other people don't see it. Of just one, it's just a weird thing. The fact that Joe Biden said he's going to pick a Black woman, I think is probably illegal. And I don't know, doesn't that go against the civil rights? Okay, so what you're saying is all other people that are not a Black woman are eliminated from contention, which isn't that discriminatory based on gender and race, which are protected classes from the civil rights era, from the Civil Rights Act of 1965? Isn't that a huge problem? I don't know. We've appointed more Black justices. Who cares? How about you just appoint justices? You know what? You know who actually is discriminated against more than anybody in this country? Ugly people. Probably statistically true. I have no actual statistical evidence to back that up, but I would almost guarantee you that if two people have the same resume and one person is hideous and the other person is pretty dang good looking, it doesn't matter the race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, job qualifications, the ugly person probably is not going to get the job. How about justice for ugly people? I want Kamala Harris to stand up on that stage and say, Joe Biden and I, and I'm proud to say this, America, have appointed more ugly people to federal court judgeships than anybody has ever done. How about justice for the ugly? I would probably include myself in that category too. So don't think this is discriminatory or inflammatory against ugly folks in America. I don't know. Where have we gone off on this? But wow. Reading some comments here, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, a lot of people say they agree, which I appreciate. I appreciate those of you who agree. I also appreciate those of you who just in all caps say F you. I don't know. It's a good time. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you hammer that through in somebody's head of like, look, if you're going after demographics more than you are qualifications, one, it's just flat out racist. Two, you're diminishing the qualifications of the minority demographics who are qualified to do that job, because regardless, if you say that you're picking people because of their race or gender, the people that are of that race or gender that are qualified are going to get side-eyed by everyone in the room wondering, are you here because you're qualified, or are you here because you check the box? And a whole host of other things that I won't get into because we got to jump off this bad boy. Yeah, appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. I know it was a blockbuster day today. We'll get to the Fauci stuff later. That's not necessarily super time sensitive, so there is that. Let's see, where was it? I saved the comment from a while ago. Karen said, no baby yet? Nope, not yet. Still doing the show, but appreciate you asking. For those of you who don't know, my wife is pregnant, 9 months. Our due date has passed, and waiting on a baby. And I only tell that to you because I believe that once the baby comes, we will be out of here for a little while, and doing the whole dad thing, which I'm excited about. But appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. Just type in JOBOB pretty much anywhere. You'll be able to find me. If you live in the Fallbrook, northern San Diego County area in California, Van Buren / Fort Smith, Arkansas, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Twin Falls, Idaho, we will be on tour there doing the comedy show with myself, several other great stand-up comedians, and Elephant Party, the improv group, which is just freaking hilarious. If you live in any of those areas, you can also check out just any of the social media platforms where you can get some tickets and all of that sort of stuff. Would love to look forward to seeing all of you there. But that'll do it for today. See you tomorrow. Again, unless baby comes, in which case I won't. But that's the plan. See you then. Same time, same place. God bless America.